This is the podcast overview for Week 2, Module 2. We will be covering Chapters 3 and 4. So we're going over social perception and the self. So here is the to-do list that goes along with the material for this module. You'll find the chapter objectives, the lecture slides, the readings, as well as video links for the week, and then the supplementary article readings and your discussion board and exam. These are the chapter objectives for Chapter 3, and you can click here. I give an overview of each one of these objectives, so you can kind of take a look and see what you're going to be learning. And I suggest you do this before reading the chapter. It's a good way to preview the material. And then here's the one for Chapter 4 as well. These are the article readings that go along with the chapter. So you've got Article 13 and Article 5. You'll need to read both of those, and you'll be integrating those as well as the chapter readings into your discussion posts for this module. And then we've got lecture slides here for Chapter 3 and 4. And then here's the videos. There's a couple longer videos. This one's about 50 minutes, and this one covers so much of social perception. So it goes over nonverbal cues, voice tone, facial expressions, micro expressions. So it really illustrates a lot of what you're going to be reading in the chapter this week. And so I recommend really paying close attention to that, even though it is a little bit on the longer side. The rest of the videos are brief YouTube videos that cover concepts. So I have a couple different videos on the fundamental attribution error, which you're going to be learning about in the social perception chapter and learning what that is. And then impression management, which is really the research in first impressions and how we manage the impressions that we make on others. And then we get into more of the Chapter 4 material, which is the self. So here we have a video about self-concept, self-identity, and social identity. Then we have social identity theory. And this is just a funny little video on the self in a digital world. So how digital and social media is reflected in people's views of themselves. And then we have another video on the modeling that happens via social media and electronic devices, kind of eroding human connection. And so much of what we develop as our sense of self comes from human connection. And so this video sort of takes a poke at how social media could be eroding some of that human connection that relates to one's building up of their sense of self, and then what kinds of steps can people take to reduce that. And then this is a video on self-reflections, how we view ourselves versus how other people view us. And so this is directly related to what you're going to be learning about the social comparison, particularly the looking glass self concept that you're going to read about in Chapter 4. And then I have another video on the self in social media, just a short little cartoon spoof. And that does it for the videos. So I definitely recommend making sure that you've not only done the readings, but you've also watched the videos, because the videos I select as they illustrate the concepts that you're reading about in the text. So it really helps tie in some visual material for you to understand the concepts that some of you aren't as familiar with if you don't have a background in psych. I know a lot of people in this class are majoring in a variety of things, so you may not have a strong grounding in psychology. So I definitely recommend using those videos as a guide to help you understanding the material. And then your discussion for this week, you're going to be integrating that all in. So first off, you're going to be talking about first impressions. How long lasting do you think that they are? And here's where I want you to support your answer with research. So based on what you read, what does research have to say for the lasting impact of first impressions? And then as an example, would they persist over the course of a semester or even longer? So here's where you want to, take anything you can think of as an example. Meeting a friend, meeting a teacher, somebody you didn't know at the beginning of the semester, and then at the end of the semester, what would you say about your first impression compared to your ending thought about that person after knowing them for a semester? So be specific, use whatever example you can think of. But then if you want to expand upon this, if you were to test first impressions, like how did a first impression change from the beginning of the semester to the end, how might you do that? So here I want you to integrate in some of Chapter 1, the research methods that you read about. What would be a good methodological design for answering that kind of question? Do you want to describe something or explain something? Your design would vary depending upon what it is you're trying to answer. And then in number 2, here's where we're using more of the Chapter 4 material, where you're going to explain how might a high versus a low self-monitoring individual act in an intimate situation such as dating. So if you're a high self-monitor, how might you behave? If you're a low self-monitor, how might you behave? Give some examples to support your answers that are consistent with how the reading describes what it means to be low versus high self-monitor. So you want to understand those concepts pretty well. And the article that you're reading that goes along with Chapter 4 also focuses on self-monitoring. So it gives you a little bit more there. So please use examples from both the articles and the chapter in your response. And then lastly, once you've done all of that, you'll be ready for Exam 2, which covers Chapters 3 and 4. There's 30 multiple choice questions worth 1 point each, and you have 30 minutes to take the test. So as you're reading through the material and you're working through all of that, if questions come up, please remember that I do have Zoom office hours. If you'd like to Zoom, or if you just have some questions via email, if you just like to touch base and review any concepts, that I'm here to do that with you. Thanks everyone, and have a great week.